I feel like it means to be alive, vibrant.
It means to be able to think about what you want to do, be compassionate to other people, work on furthering the purpose of humanity, whatever you think that might be.
I feel like it means to have love for one another. Interaction with just earth, people, animals, just everything that God created.
Means to be human. I would classify myself as a humanist, and I think it's the preservation of other people's lives and working together towards a common goal.
My heart.
My ankle.
Well, honestly, I feel like God blessed me physically, so as far as body parts, I would keep all my body parts, but I would take a robot brain because they smarter and quicker.
Oh, I'd say my legs. I got a half marathon in a week, and I want to be able to run that thing.
3, 2.
Welcome to Everyday Grace TV, where there is story, there is grace. I'm Mary Andrilli, and on this innovative episode of Everyday Grace TV, we're going to explore what it means to be human.
And I'm Jay Locklear. We're going to be delving deeply into this very human issue with members of the Terrorbytes robotics team, Tyler Bletsch and Ethan Atkinson, who we had an opportunity to meet at the NC First robotics competition.
As you may have seen in our opening footage, we took our cameras out to South Point Mall in Durham and asked folks who passed by 2 different questions. The first question was, what does it mean to be human? And the second question is, if you could replace any human body part with a robot part, what would you replace? So Jay, I want to ask you, if you could replace any human body part with a robot part, what would you replace?
As a piano player, my first answer would probably be my fingers, but I don't know that I would want to play any faster or not have any control over what my fingers do. So in reality, I would probably replace my left knee. I injured it when I was playing basketball when I was in high school, and it's never been quite right since then. So it might be nice to get some new body parts in there. What about yourself? Not the human body part question, but let me ask you the other question that we ask our guests. What does it mean to you to be human?
For me, to be human means the ability to tell our stories, to be creative, and to imagine the possibilities of the future.
That's a good answer. I look forward to hearing what our other guests have to say about some of these issues as well. On this journey that we call Everyday Grace TV, you're more than welcome to come with us. You can find us on Twitter at Everyday Grace TV and on the web, everydaygrace.tv.
Next up, we'll talk to Tyler Bletsch, who is the NC First robotics mentor. Welcome back to Everyday Grace TV, where we are speaking with Tyler Bletsch, a mentor with First Robotics. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So I'm really excited about this particular episode, and part of that has to do with spending time at First Robotics, at the First Robotics competition on Friday, where Jay and I had an opportunity to meet you and talk to folks from the Terrorbyte team, and then also see your robot compete. So I'm wondering if you could tell me just a little bit, when did you first become interested in robots?
Really by accident almost. I was working for a company in the Triangle called NetApp, and they have a high school outreach program, and I started out as a math tutor at a local school called Research Triangle High School, and someone came to me and said, do you want to try being a mentor for this robotics thing we're trying?
Right.
And I didn't know anything about it. So I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I'll try. I'll show up and see what it's like.
Was that the first time that you'd been exposed to robotics?
Pretty much. I mean, I tinkered when I was in high school and college, but like nothing like what these students do now.
Okay.
I was like stapling wires together and making a motor turn, but nothing on the scale of what's happening here.
Okay.
And at the time, I was kind of, I'd always been a software guy, a computer guy. And working with these students got me interested in the wider world of electronics and wider technologies. So it's really been a two-way street working with the team.
Okay. And you are the mentor for Terrorbytes, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your role as a mentor.
As a mentor, we really want to do as little as we can while teaching the skills and experiences that we want to. We're not there to build the robot or to solve the engineering problems. We're there to show the techniques and technologies that students can use to solve the problem on their own. And it's not just about the hard skills of rivets and bolts. It's also about soft skills like leadership and working with others. And it's beyond just being friendly, which is a prerequisite. It's things like understanding where the other person's point of view, speaking in terms of their interests, and giving honest and sincere appreciation when you're trying to work with others and motivate a team.
What is that? The sign you showed me when we were at the competition, and it's hanging up in the display area. Do you remember that? It talks about judgment.
Yes. Use your best judgment. That's one of our catchphrases here in the team. And what it really means is when a student comes to a mentor with a technical question, we of course want to answer that technical question. But when they come with a, what should I do? What's the best way to proceed? We want to give them information, but ultimately it's use your best judgment.
Right.
Because personal judgment in both technical and personal affairs is one of the major things we're trying to teach. And it's one of the kind of skills that doesn't fit into a rote book learning kind of structure, which is what makes me really excited about the FIRST Robotics program.
Oh, right. Well, on this show, we actually have Jack the Gripper, the robot that your students have built. And we'll be showing that later, so that's really exciting.
I'm excited.
And you know that this particular episode is on what does it mean to be human. So I'd like to ask you, what do you think the role of robots are in, I guess, in humanity's evolution?
Well, I think certainly in the near term, robotics are going to be an extension of human capability, as all technology has been. Cars come out, and it's like, what are the roles of automated transport to humanity? Because it really did change the social dynamic.
Right.
I anticipate robotics will shift the dynamic of how humans operate in a similar way. Over a gradual evolution. It's not going to be your wake up one day and your robot overlords are at the door. It's going to be one day, Google or some startup comes up with a neat thing that makes your life easier that's based on robotic principles. It gains adoption. There are more things like it, and it just kind of flowers out from there. So it's not a sudden shock. It's just an evolution to include robotics as an extension of everyday life.
Okay, so this question, this is basically my curiosity. I've been seeing a lot of movies lately about robots, and right now Chappie has just come out, and this is about a robot that can think and feel. Why do you think that suddenly we're seeing this kind of predominance of robot films?
I think part of it is just it's doing what speculative fiction does, which is look at trying to extrapolate where we are now to where we may be going and ask some questions about that. But at the same time, you have to understand that robotics today, they can give a good demo, but there is no AI that approaches anything like a human. There are very specific AIs that can excel in very specific tasks. It can play chess at a human level. It can do this at a human level. But AIs that can truly reason about the world in a very general sense are still a long way off.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So next up, we're going to speak with Ethan Atkinson. Jay will be interviewing him, and then we get to meet your robot. Thank you so much for being with us today, Tyler.
Thank you.
Welcome back. We're here with Ethan Atkinson, who is a member of the Terrorbytes robotics team. We're going to be discussing robots and all things related with Ethan. So, Ethan, let me start at the beginning.
Yes.
How did you get involved? How did you get interested in robots?
Well, my freshman year at the school, I came when the school first started. My friends, a lot of my friends joined the robotics team. They kept telling me, you should join, you should join, you should join. And so I asked my parents, and they said no.
Oh.
Yes. So sophomore year, we had finally worked out a way, and I had enough free time where I could join the team because they were worried about karate and schoolwork getting in the way. And so I joined sophomore year, and I've been with the team since, and I'm a junior now, and I love it.
Good. So tell us, when you're working with when you're with the team, tell us what your role is on Terrorbytes.
Well, during build season, I work on pit crew, or not pit crew. That's during competition. I work pit crew, and I double as the mascot. This is the first time we've had the mascot costume. And but during the build season, I work on mechanical team under Jacob Freeman. He's mechanical lead, and I work on the robot. And you don't work only on that. You may have to go off and help. I've had to go off and help control sometime. You don't work on only the thing. And then during the off season, you work on whatever sub team you get put on for the off season team competition.
Okay. So building robots, competing with robots. Mary and I had a chance to be at the competition with you all on Friday and watch what the robots were doing. Where do you see robotics in the future? I mean, what we were watching on Friday, the robots were picking things up, stacking them, moving them around. Obviously, there was some human control, but some of this is programmed into the robot. Mm-hmm. So where do you see robotics progressing, say, 20 years from now? Where do you think robotics will be?
Oh, boy. I think the only place robotics can't go is limited by human ingenuity, because we're going to find a way to make tasks easier. That's why robots were first made, easier tasks. And now they're recreation, leisure, quadcopters, smartphones, RC cars, those are robots. They're working on, the self-driving cars, planes, autopilots. Most of the flights are now autopilot. Takeoff and landing is pilot controlled. It's really limited to where we don't want to take it. Eventually, unfortunately, your camera crew may get replaced, but let's hope not.
So if you could clear up one misconception about robots. There's been tons of movies, science fiction movies about robots doing terrible things to humanity.
Yes.
If you could clear up one big misconception about robots, what would you want to say to folks? The camera is yours.
It's a good question. I'm going to say that we're not all out to kill you. 99.99999% of us aren't out to get you. And that robots are much more likely to be helpful. You like your coffee maker to go off at a preset time every morning? That's your robot. And hopefully your coffee maker going off at that time isn't going to kill you. Very small chance.
So all of this research, all of this work, all the time spent building robots like 4561 that we saw in the competition, all these different styles of robots, all of this, the ultimate goal then is to help humanity, to be helpful, maybe to do some things that physically we're not capable of, or to do some repetitive sorts of things. The goal is to be helpful.
Yeah. And last year, I think, or 1 year, NASA actually used one team's design as part of the basis. I think it was for a prototype rover and maybe even Curiosity, I'm not sure. But, a lot of stuff that you can see now could end up in companies' things. This year's competition was a large sponsor of FedEx, stacking boxes. Warehouses need stuff sorted, and the things that we're doing could be the basis of the next technology, stacking, getting your package to you from A to B.
Well, as somebody who uses technology and uses computers on a fairly regular basis, I'm grateful for all the work that's being done. Ethan Atkinson has been our guest. We've been talking about robots with members of the Terrorbytes robotics team. Ethan, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for being here on Everyday Grace TV.
Welcome back to Everyday Grace TV, where there is story, there is grace. We are here this afternoon with the Terrorbytes team. Welcome. We're so glad that you are here, and we have a very special guest with us today, and that is Jack the Gripper. So Ethan, why don't you start out telling us a little bit about your creation, and I also want to know how you came up with the name.
Yes. So originally we had built this assembly here out of wood, and that was what was originally named Jack the Gripper by, it was either Evan Vonovich or Julian Burl. I think they both came up with it, and they named that as the wood assembly Jack the Gripper. When I rebuilt it in metal, and they helped too, we translated the name over. We ended up with ending up having a vote for the team name, and we were all in favor of naming it Tiny Tim.
Oh, okay.
Because it had a silly little face on the front that we all loved. It's covered up by that number sign, unfortunately. And someone cheated in the voting and voted something like 30 times for the name Jack the Gripper.
Okay.
But the mentors had already printed out the flyers and everything, so we couldn't change it. So we were all
And that's the untold story
Yes.
of the name.
Yeah. So we still kind of call him Tiny Tim.
Absolutely. So how on earth did you all learn how to do this?
We figured it out. That's the best I can say. There's no real learning. They knew some of the stuff. They suggested some ideas, and then the rest of it was, they know more about the actual names for things. I know what happens with me a lot. I'm like, oh, we need a thing that has different stages, and we'll go up, and they're like, oh yeah, a cascade elevator. We can get that for you. And so that's what happens with me a lot. I'm not sure if Jacob, do you have any?
Yeah. So, I think most people that joined the team kind of knew a little bit of how mechanical things worked, but I think the mentors work together to teach us how each individual component worked together to do a certain task. So, like, originally, freshman year, all the people that joined may not have known how we could have gripped without motors. And so we learned about pneumatics. We used to call them, what is it called? I'm sorry, I can't.
I don't
think of the
answer
name.
questions. I'm a mentor.
But we learned they're called air cylinders, and they use air to push force into a given direction. We learned how to direct that power into a different direction.
Okay.
Guys, there are a lot of wires, a lot of blinking lights, a lot of moving parts. How long does it take to build something like this? I know you maybe build a piece and then bolt things together, but if you were going to build this from the ground up, how long would it take to build one of these?
So first, or FRC gives us 6 weeks to build the entire robot. And so, yeah, we have 6 weeks.
Well, Brian, I want to ask you, what do you think the future is with Jack the Gripper and the team? How do you hope to kind of lead the team?
Yeah.
Because you two are a mentor.
Right, yeah, I'm a mentor. This is my second year with the team. And Jack the Gripper probably has a extensive future that he's going to be going forward with. We're definitely going to bring him to a lot of outreaches that we do in the community, take him out so that younger kids who might not yet be involved in robotics can see him, can play with him, can get inspired with him, and, basically be able to show him off. So we're really proud of him as he is now, and we want to keep making improvements for him. So Jacob talked about the off-season event. He's got still more competing to do. So we're going to take him to different events and put him through his paces yet again. And then after that's all done, he'll hang around in our shop, and any visitors can come see him, and any students, young or old, can come by and play with him and really get hands-on and, hope to enjoy him.
Wonderful. So my understanding is you have a demonstration that you're going to do, and we're actually going to see Jack the Gripper do some work. So why don't we step off and let Jack do Jack's thing?
All right, you're good to go, guys. Let's go.
thank you so much for being a part of Everyday Grace TV. It has been a pleasure to have you here and then also to be with you in the competition. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I just want to mention that if there are any high school students in the Raleigh-Durham area interested in the team or robotics in general, you can learn more about the program at usfirst.org and about our team at terrorbytes.org. Lastly, if there's any adults interested in becoming mentors in both technology and non-technology subjects, we'd love to have you aboard, so come check us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Everyday Grace TV. We've just seen some fantastic work by some students and some mentors, and now we're joined by Belton Joyner. As always, good to have you with us,
Thanks,
Belton.
Jay. Very, always good to be here. Good place to be.
We're going to take an opportunity now to sort of circle back around to the question that we started the episode with. It's a question that we used when we went out to South Point. So, Belton, I want to ask you, what does it mean to you to be human?
Thank you, Jay.
That's an easy one, right?
Yeah, that's an easy one. Let's start with a softball question. What does it mean? Mercer, you'd think, I have almost 80 years of experience at being a human being. You'd think I would have a quicker and easier answer to get to that. But let's come at it this way. What does it mean to be human? Let's make believe that you're going to write a story.
Okay.
And you want it to be a story about all people, that it would apply to everybody. Anybody could pick it up and look at the story and say, oh, I see myself in that. It's going to be true about everybody, a universal story. All right, now you decide in this story you're going to have two characters. You name one of them human being, and the other one you name life or life giver. Anybody who picks up that story and reads it and sees a character named human being and another character named life, they're probably going to say, ooh, that must be about everybody. It's a story about all humanity. You might say the human condition. So really, that's sort of what's going on in the book of Genesis, the first book in the Bible. The word Genesis means beginning, because there's this account of these two folks, Adam and Eve. Adam, is a Hebrew word that translates human, made out of dirt. Humus, like dirt, humus, human, all describing human there. And Eve is a word that when we translate it into English from the Old Testament language means life or life giver. So here you've got this thing of life and life giver. So you think the writers of Genesis, and I think there were probably several writers, they were inspired to tell some things that apply to all of us. The human condition. Again, I'll say it's the human condition. So according to Genesis, one of the strange truths about humans is that we are created in the image of God. Maybe you've heard the term imago Dei. Yeah. It's a kind of a classic way of talking about image of God, and a good word to work into a conversation sometimes. You want to impress somebody, you could just say,
at the supermarket.
At the supermarket, just turn to the person behind you in the line and say, hey, how's the imago Dei going? Whatever. But imago Dei is the kind of classic term for image of God. But, you wonder, what in the world does that mean? Right. And when I say what in the world does that mean, I mean, what in the world does that mean? Because when I look around at the world around me, I look at the internet, and it's just bouncing with news of murders and wars. I find us all struggling with our own sense of what's right and what's wrong, and we have to wonder, what in the world does it mean to be created in the image of God? Well, if it's any comfort to you, we're not the first to ask that question. People who translate the Bible have tried their best to find a way to say this in understandable English. Most translators say humankind is created in the image of God. There was one translation about 40 years ago or so, about a generation ago, that said, so God made man like his maker. Like God, did God make man. Man and maid, M-A-I-D, God, man and maid, did God make them. Now, even though that does lack a little bit in inclusive ways of talking about God and about humankind, it does make clear that God's likeness, God's image includes both male and female. So there are other translators who've tried it different ways, you know, make it inclusive, whatever. There are a lot of rabbits in that, you know, to chase, but I think we may want to zero in on just one. The first thing that jumps out at me when I look at that is that God doesn't make part of humanity more in God's image than some other part of humanity. It means there's a splendid and I'd even say frightening equality in what it means to be human. Male and female, yes. Diverse, yes. Left-handed, right-handed, yes. Packaged different sexually, yes. Red and yellow and black and white, as the old song says, yes. Yeah. Believer and non-believer, yes. It's a remarkable diversity, all out of being created in the image of God.
Belton, we live in such extraordinary times where we as human beings have the opportunity to advance what it means to be human through technologies like robotics, like the one that we just had here in the studio. So how does that ability to integrate those things to become more machine-like affect your interpretation of us being created in God's image?
Why aren't you feeling, Jay, that it advances more to be human because of the technological advances? I'm not making the link between technological advance and meaning I'm more human.
Sure, and that's a valid question. Maybe repairing something that may be non-functional in my body, or perhaps advancing some capabilities that we have that are not maybe to the level that we would want them to be. And it's not necessarily, and maybe this is the point that you're driving at, necessarily that it's a good thing, but that we have the capability to do it. But if by doing that, does that change the interpretation of being created in God's image?
No, I think not. But the creation in God's image is about a relationship with God and a relationship with others and a relationship with the created order.
Sure.
And none of that is changed by the technological differences that may emerge. It may make my relationships with others change because I can relate to them differently, more easily, as one of our guests today said, with coffee is made in the morning, you know, that kind of thing. But also said that the extent of robotics is limited by what? The limits of human ingenuity.
Right.
So finally, beyond the human gift, the technology has no meaning. The meaning of humanity is not in the technological advance, but in the relational piece with God and with humans and with the created order.
Right. What is in there at the foundation of that is more relationship than what we do with intelligence, say.
I think that's fair, yeah. And you talk about, you said in one of the conversations you'd like to get a new knee. Well, I've got one here that, you know, it's not the way I came equipped originally. So I know something about what you mean about that, but I don't think this knee replacement has made me more or less human.
So
it may have given me some gifts for expressing my humanity.
Sure.
Because I can move around and walk better than I could have without it, but I don't think it changes my basic humanity.
So if we're, there's a lot of movies that are coming out, like Chappie has come out, and of course, a human has created that particular robot, and we started out the show asking the question, you know, if you could replace a human body part with a robot body part, then what would you replace? If our beings are more and more replaced by robot body parts, how does that affect being created in the image of God, or even being human, or does it?
Well, one thing, let me get something clear. You talk about movies.
Yeah.
They tell me they have sound now, and they're in color. Is that true? They actually have sound and they're in color?
It is true.
What happened to the guy who sat down in the front and played the music?
He's still there. You just can't hear him.
And the machine runs by itself. Nobody has to crank it anymore.
No. Well, I should get out more. I really should. Yeah, no. But I think what those movies are capturing is our anticipation of what might be. Here's a guess here, here's a guess there. But does any of that change what it is to be created in God's image? Once again, I would say I think not. That which makes me created in God's image is not the mechanical way my body works. It's my relationship with God.
And I think it's interesting that one of the hallmarks, if you will, or one of the ways that you can tell how realistic a machine is in a movie, in a story, in these anticipations that we have, one of the ways that you can tell if it's achieved a certain level is if it can relate with another person.
But its relationship, Jay, has been programmed into it by a person.
Oh, sure,
So
sure.
The machine is not relating.
But I think, well, what I'm saying is I think it's interesting that that's one of the things that we point to is relationship.
Yeah.
So we're always, even in trying to anticipate something that doesn't exist yet, we're still trying to get back to relationship.
Well, we named, remember when we had the robot up here, gave it a name.
Right.
You know, I mean, what could be a stronger evidence of the effort to get
a
that
relationship
with and then to give it a name.
Sure, sure. Well, Belton, at what point do you think we cease to be human?
I don't think we do. Because our humanity is the reflection of the image of God, and that is not destroyed by life or death. It may be broken, may need to be restored, and I come out of a tradition that talks about how that restoration can occur through Jesus Christ, but that's a story for another day, I suppose. But I don't think that that ultimately that we cease to be human. It's God's creation, and they say that matter is not being created or destroyed. It's just sort of changing the way it's put together. So maybe our relationship with God, it comes and goes, but we're still human.
Belton, as always, thank you for being a part of Everyday Grace TV.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
We're so grateful for all of our guests on this week's episode of Everyday Grace TV.
We'll conclude the episode with a song called Follow the Way, written by myself and Adam Seed and performed by myself and Adam and Jimmy Creighton.
In your image we were made. Through your breath, life you gave. But we turned and lost our way. Gave up glory, put on shame. Now our hearts are troubled here. Sin and death, doubt and fear. God of glory, God of grace, how we long for your embrace, and your promise is true. We will trust in you. We will follow the way. Follow the way. Speak the truth. Speak the truth. Live the life. Live the life. In all we do. In all we do. We're pilgrims together. We're pilgrims together. Hey! Jesus, you have set us free. Now we follow where you lead. Out of darkness we have come, and your spirit leads us home.